Welcome in the third episode of the IoT Decoded podcast, the podcast about the LPWAN technology, the low power wide area, the engine of the IoT. Today we are going to talk about Amazon sideway announcement, where we'll continue with the LPWAN market segmentation, and then we are going to finish with some little news. So, Amazon has announced some days ago, a new solution for IoT, and this solution has been named Sidewalk. So, what is behind Sidewalk? Is that something really new? Is it in competition with LPWAN, as I have been read in different newspapers? No, I'm going to spoil it. I really don't think so. But that's really interesting technology. I mean, for smart home, that could be really interesting. For IoT in a city, it could be also really interesting. What is Amazon Sideway? Is a low power technology. Well, that's interesting. You can have some small device able to communicate for long term in a citizen environment. So that's really interesting. But it's not really a long range technology. I mean, it depends. If you compare this with Wi-Fi, yes, it's long range. But if you compare it with the different LPWAN, it's not long range. It's about 500 meters. 500 meters for North American regulation, so with about 20 dBm of transmission power. So it's not really long range. That's interesting, basically, because 500 meters, it lets you the ability to create an urban network with many different devices deployed. And here it's interesting that Amazon is announcing it, because I mean, if any other small company has announced such technologies, it has no luck to be something. But if it's made by Amazon, it starts to be interesting, because Amazon has a capability to deploy it on a really large perimeter. So you can have a lot of them inside one city, and 500 meters by 500 meters, you can at the end cover all the city. That's a test they have made by deploying 700 different devices all around Los Angeles, and they said they have covered most of the city. So okay, with 700 devices that did not cover all the city, that's interesting. And as a comparison with a classical LPWAN, with something about 10 to 20 antennas, you're able to cover the whole Los Angeles area, even with some redundancy around. So you see there's big difference. But what is interesting in Amazon Sidewalk, it's not a public network. I mean, you don't need to have an operator to deploy the network, to have the network existing. So that's interesting. Everyone deploying something for its own use case will extend the network, and potentially bubble will join each other to create a urban global network. So that's good to see, and that's good to follow. Actually, we don't have a lot of information about the technology inside, but I mean, if we made some inception, Amazon is working with Ring Company to create this first announcement and first devices. And Ring Company is really specialized in LoRa device. They have certified a lot of LoRa devices, and we can think that it could be based on LoRa chip. When I say LoRa, I don't say LoRaWan. Okay, that's really different. See, listen my first podcast on it. So it could be LoRa, not LoRaWan. Well, that's interesting. It could correspond to such thing as are using LoRa with a 500 kilohertz system to be a high bandwidth communication on the different device. So it could be interesting, and why it could be interesting for me is it's because in fact if Amazon wants to start new technology, I mean, they are not chip provider, chip maker. Amazon, they are product distributor. So they have no big interest of creating a new technology. If they did it, they would also, I think, name the chip provider in the announcement. And here they have just named device maker. So it means that device maker is accessing some standard components, some standard chips available on the market, and so the most available technology allowing to work on ESM on such a distance and so on is basically LoRa. So we can expect that it's something based on LoRa, but not LoRaWan, okay, with a specific protocol. And the main difference is that this protocol is mesh based. Okay, so we can have a packet relaying between the different point to reach internet and being able to have a global network. So we're gonna see when we're gonna have more information. That's just an assumption I made. And if they did that, that's really interesting. And so that's good for our ecosystem and also for device maker because the technology is well known and easy to access. So that's for the good part of it. What is less interesting or more dangerous about this technology? There's two things. The first thing is that, in my point of view, it will never be a global network. As if we count on a citizen to deploy and extend the network, it means that you won't have the network available in mountain and on roadside or countryside. Okay, you will maybe have it in big city where you have guys loving technology, able to deploy it and to connect such devices. So that's interesting for cities, maybe more complicated to use on other circumstances. The other point is that the technology has been announced and tested in North America, where there is no duty cycle on ESM band. The ESM band are free, but as a consequence, you have some rules to use them. In North America, you have to do some channel hopping on regular frequency to be able to communicate on ISM, but it means that you can communicate every time if you are just channel hopping correctly. And it's not the case in Europe. So for mesh communication, when you need to have a lot of communication and reading, the European constraint may be a problem. And also for the use cases, we see that Ring is using LoRa for video transmission. So they are really interesting use case, but you can do that in Europe just because of the duty cycle. You don't have the bandwidth to do such thing. So that's limiting the use cases, and I will be surprised to see how they will deploy or transform or make this technology working in Europe. They did not get any information about this in the communication. In my point of view, we are going to wait a bit before getting in Europe, and it will be for a long time only available in North America. So we will see that. The last thing, and that's the negative point in my point of view, is that this is using ESM. If it's using LoRa with a 500 kilohertz approach, it will use a lot of bandwidth. And as they can have a success, so they can have many people using it, even not really knowing that they are using it. But at the end, it means a lot of noise on the ESM band. And not really if it's something like 500 kilohertz, it's really not respectful of the ASM band. So it can be a risk for other LPWAN to get noise because of this technology. So let's see that. That was interesting to see Amazon coming on the game with the IoT networks. Let's see how it will be when the specification will be published and we'll get more information about how it works internally. So this comes to my second point I would like to talk about today. It's the market segmentation and the place for the different technologies. Sidewalk is a new player in this game, so I don't exactly know where it's going to be currently. I mean, it's too early to say that, but we have a lot of competitors already in place. I just mentioned that Sidewalk because we have seen a lot of journalists saying how Amazon Sidewalk is coming. It's the head of Sigfox LoRaWan and all that stuff. Yeah, but that's not really the same thing. I mean, it's totally different. And I'm really bored, in fact, to listen all these journalists saying, "Oh, this is coming. It's the death of something else. Oh, this is coming. So this other thing will never work correctly," and so on. Yeah, no, guys, just I mean, you're a dumb guy. In fact, if you take a look to the technology, you would see that there is big difference between the technology. They are not addressing the same use case. Yes, there's something you can do with some technology and you cannot do with that technology. And so every technology have its place. They are addressing different use cases. So just as a message of peace, I want to tell you, just love all the technology, don't fight them between each other. Okay, let's be a bit more serious, even if my message is really a peaceful a message of peace between this technology. And if I want to have this message, it's just because, in fact, all the fight I see between the technology just is slowing down the IoT deployment. I would like to see a deployment of IoT accelerating, but if companies asks themselves question of what about the technology I need to be used? Do I made the right choice? Oh, Amazon is something new. Why can I use it? Or I need to wait and see what it will be to take my decision. Okay, all of this is waste time. During all that time, your company is running late on the IoT adoption. So why I think these technology are not in competition? Why I think they are all in a blue ocean market? It's because, in fact, if you can segment easily the market between the high-end devices, so high-end devices are devices with a lot of possibility, able to transmit a lot of information in real time and so on, but they're expensive because they're high-end, okay? Compared to low-cost devices. So low-cost devices, they have not a lot of things to transfer. You have time, but you want them to be really low cost. Low cost is in terms of TCO, which means the price of chips, the price of communication, the price of battery, and so on. So all of this is linked. So on the high-end side, we clearly see two technologies. There are the 3GPP technologies, LTE-M, NB-IoT. If you want something that really needs speed, like for doing a photo, like for transferring a video, voice, if you want to have real-time data, LTM is the solution. There's no big competition for this. If you have an IP-based system, you want your device directly communicating with the server, that's LTM also. Yeah, there's only these technologies that have this capability in the low power environment. Okay, but for LTM you have to pay for LTM chip, which is high, but you also need to have a strong battery because LTM is consuming a lot of power, basically, and so it has a global cost, which is important. If you are less, if your use case need less bandwidth, like for transferring picture, audio, for monitoring, with high frequency monitoring, NB-IoT is really good. Okay, you can have smaller battery. Eventually, you can work with solar panel or things like this. It works really well. Okay, so NB-IoT is a good solution for that. But NB-IoT, you also need strong battery. You have a expensive chip, not so much, but more than for LoRaWan and Sigfox. Okay, so you have a device which is a bit more expensive, and also for the same reason, if you want to take picture, you can have sensors that will be more expensive and so on. So on the global price, NB-IoT part is reasonable, and so they are the high-end devices. Now, if you take a look to the low-cost devices, where you just do some monitoring, low frequency monitoring or tracking, okay, like supply chain tracking and things like this. You want to have a low-cost device with small battery, able to operate for years on such battery, okay? So for this, typically Sigfox and LoRaWan really correctly answer your use case. And if you want really low-cost devices, like you had just $1 for the complete devices with battery, with casing, with chips, PCB, all that stuff, okay? There's only one solution, which is Sigfox, basically. So you can get detail on my previous podcast about this. Okay, but currently you get it with Sigfox. Okay, so you see there is a good segmentation of devices. Okay, so you tell me, oh, you talk that most in the low-cost device, it's Sigfox and LoRaWan. So there's a competition between Sigfox and LoRaWan. But no, there's no competition between Sigfox and LoRaWan. When you take a look at what happened on the market in the last 4-5 years on Sigfox and LoRaWan device, what we've seen that there is a public network, global network. The target is to have a worldwide coverage, even if currently it's only 65 countries, but 65, it's wow, that's really big. It's a lot of people, okay? So it's growing months after months. Okay, so if you have a use case that where you have a device you want to deploy in many countries, working on most of them, okay, the choice of Sigfox is just natural. Okay, because someone will buy your device, and if it is part of one of the 65 countries, it will be able to use the devices. So Sigfox is a good choice for this. Even if you are in a mobility context, you want to have a device moving from one place to another place and moving from one country to another country. Basically, Sigfox is also the solution because it's the more global public network in this category. Sometimes LoRaWan is really good in mobility, but I mean the number of countries covered in nationwide with LoRaWan is around 5 countries. Okay, so that's why for mobility inside one country it's more Sigfox. For global deployment in multiple countries it's also Sigfox. But if you have a use case with a lot of devices in one given area, here, LoRaWan is really interesting because you can do private network with LoRaWan. So you can build your own network, have your own object, and manage all of this. So it's really the parameter where LoRaWan is really a champion. It's when you want to have a private network and when your device are deployed in a coverage road, which is really important because behind this private network, you have a lot of industrial use cases, farming use cases, okay, which are really interesting domain for IoT. LoRaWan is really a good choice. There's one question is, what is the limit? When do I need to use a private network if I'm an industrial use case, for example, compared to a public network? It can be LoRaWan public or can be a Sigfox public. Okay, and that's a good question. My point of view, I'm writing a post on www.dask91.com about this, and my point of view, the limit is about 2,000 devices, but it's subject to discussion, but it's something between 1,000 and 3,000, okay, and once you have in one area, which can be an industry or which can be a city, if you have this number of devices, economically speaking, it starts to be interesting to manage your own private network. You can manage a private network for many other good reasons, but in terms of cost, that's the limit. So under this limit, it's better to take a look at Sigfox or to select a LoRaWan public operator for doing this. And when you are in a specific location, the LoRaWan public operator, they are available for I think 100 of countries. Okay, that's a bit different between a nationwide LoRaWan and public network installed deployed for a specific use case. So you have both that are available. So based on this, my point is to say there is something to it for all the technology on the LPWAN. So that's not a competition. Just guys, stop fighting each other. Just try to accelerate the IoT market. That would be really good for all of us. To conclude this episode, some news about my favorite LoRaWan and Sigfox technologies. On Sigfox, the news of coming weeks, it's Sigfox Connect. Sigfox Connect is the yearly Sigfox event, so we are looking for a lot of great announcements. I will be there. I hope so, in Singapore. It's on the 20th and 21st on November. I'm quite sure that the next podcast will be made there, and I hope with with some surprise. And so I'm really waiting for interesting announcements. I'm quite sure that we are going to talk about the satellites, as the launch of the first satellite is really soon near. I hope that we are going to have some news about the active and passive tags as bubble, but there's nothing news about this, as it was last year announcement already. And this year, I really think that we are going to have good announcement about low-cost subscription for really low-cost devices, as I talked in my previous podcast. We had some really interesting thing going to be announced on low-cost device around $1, and we need to have a subscription corresponding to such kind of devices. So it's basically what they historically called Admiral Ivory. So I think we are going to have some announcement around that, and then I'm just expecting some new surprise. So let's see that. On the Sigfox news, also a new country. So now there is 65 countries. This new country open is Thailand, with 1,400 base stations to be deployed by 2020. So that's cool. Welcome Thailand in the network. Really great. We have not a lot of countries in Asia deployed with Sigfox, so one more, it's something really good. About the news on LoRa, LoRa Alliance has announced different things about the use of Wi-Fi in combination with LoRa, which is really interesting use case in my point of view, because you can have a high bandwidth use case when you are indoor with your equipment, and while you are going outdoor and lost the Wi-Fi network, you can continue to have a communication with a different feature, potentially, as you don't have the same bandwidth. But that's a couple of technologies that can really fit together to make an interesting thing. It's not really dedicated to LoRa. It can also be used with another LPWAn, basically. So that's interesting. You can take a look. It's on the LoRaWan website. And the other really nice thing I've seen is a new gateway, an outdoor gateway made by MikroTik. So it's a LoRaWan gateway, 8 channel, standard one. This one is made for outdoor. It has a PoE, Ethernet, Wi-Fi, and so on. And why I'm talking about this is because of the price. This gateway is €169. So that's really something interesting. I mean, I'm making my outdoor gateway based on low-cost devices for indoor getaways, and I'm reaching a price about €400. So with a such gateway, we are at the price, which basically means I can deploy 2 gateways for price of 1. So that's really interesting. I don't know if it's going to be the quality of it. I did not try it again yet. I'm waiting, in fact, for my order, because currently they are not available. They are on pre-sale. But I should get it soon. I think it's beginning of November. So you will be able to see my test result on my website, the dask91.com, as soon as I get it. And yeah, so let's see what happens. But I'm really happy to see such thing, and to see how the price of gateway has decreased. I mean, the first gateway I've bought for outdoor one was about €1,000. Okay, and now we are lower than €200 for, something which is quite equivalent. So that's good. So it's time to let you. It's time to give you a rendezvous for next month. This, I think it's going to be from Singapore. And before this event, I recommend you to take a look on my different posts on my blog. You will have more information of the topic I've addressed in that podcast. So you can see all of this in www.dask91.com.